Hi guys, it's Lisa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a bit of a more informative one. I've been really loving doing hauls and collection videos recently, but I thought I would chuck in a video that was a bit more, I guess, helpful, especially for those of you who are new to the plant world. I do like to do a lot of videos kind of aimed towards you. So yeah, I haven't done any videos that are really like knowledge based for a while, so I really wanted to do one because I have a few plants in mind for this video. So basically what the video is going to be is I'm just going to give you guys a few tips or tricks on how to make your plants look fuller or bushier. So on the top of my head there's 5 very simple methods that you can do that can help your plants to look full and bushier if you would like them to look that way. Obviously, if you don't mind, that's totally cool, but some people really like bushy plants. I personally love bushy plants, like they just look so much more lush and happy. Obviously, the best way to have a full and lush plant is to buy one that already looks full and lush. But if you just have, a standard plant and you would like it to look even fuller than it is already, then these are the tips for you. So firstly, I'll just show an example of kind of what I mean when I'm talking about full and bushy versus not so full and bushy. So an example of one plant that I have that I would like to look fuller and bushier is my Syngonium Wendlandii. So that's him here. So as you can see, there's only 2 growth points in the pot. So by growth points, I mean a cutting with it is rooted. That might be 1 growth point. So I've got this plant, which is a cutting that was rooted, put in here, that has grown these leaves, and then I've got a second growth point down here, which was another cutting that was rooted and put in here. And obviously these may go off to produce more shoots and more nodes, but my initial plants in this pot is 2 growth points. So this one started with 2, it might get more later, but at the moment there's only 2 in there. So yeah, this is an example of plant. I love it, but I want it to look fuller and bushier. So yeah, there's just not very many leaves. There's heaps of gaps. You can see all the soil and it just looks a little bit scraggly, and like I don't like that there's no leaves down here. Luckily, I can see that there's actually a growth point starting down here. I don't know if you can see it. It's right up against the wood here. So there's a growth point starting here, so that's good because that means that I'm going to get some more growth lower down, which is cool. That's what I want, because at the moment the stem is so bare and empty and everything's on the top. So that's kind of an example of a plant that I have that I would say is not looking nice and full and bushy, and I would like it to be fuller and more bushy. And then an example of a plant that I have that I think looks amazing, that's totally full and bushy, is my Marble Queen, which you guys have seen before. So here she is here. So she is huge. She is so bushy. So as you can see, she has a lot of growth points down the bottom. I would estimate there's about 15 to 20 growth points in there, which is why she looks as full as she does. You can also see that from the top you can't see any of the soil or the pot really at all. So that's like great, love that look. The less soil you can see, like the nicer, I think personally. She's starting to trail as well, which will look really nice because she has so many growth points in here. Some of them haven't started to trail yet, like these ones are. Like there's some up here that haven't started, but because there are so many in there, that means that it has the potential to be an even fuller, longer, bushier plant. So that, sometimes with trailing plants you might have it's really full at the top, but then you have like one long strand down the front, and that's kind of it. Whereas this has the potential, because it has so many growth points, to have a lot going on down here, and hopefully one day you won't be able to even see the pot, which would be nice. So yeah, this is kind of what I'm talking about when I say full and bushy. I mean, this is like ideal. She's super full and bushy, but yeah, this is what I would call a full bushy plant. And luckily this plant came with this many growth points, so I haven't done anything at all to her. This is just totally au naturel. I haven't yeah, I haven't done any of the tips and tricks. She's just doing her thing, and that's just how I bought her. But you don't always get that lucky, and sometimes you buy a really expensive plant and it's not that bushy and full and would really like it to be. So yeah, there's a few tips and tricks of ways that you can make your plants fuller without necessarily spending any extra money. So yeah, I think let's just get started. And yeah, there's a few plants that I have that I want to make fuller and bushier, so I'm going to do that as well, and then you guys can see like before and after. The first method that I'll talk about for making your plant bushy is cloning paste. So I'll just show you what cloning paste looks like. This is cloning paste. I'll just talk about it very briefly because I don't really use this stuff much, if at all, and I'll tell you why. So yeah, this one is by Urban Botanist, as you can see. This video isn't sponsored at all, or like nothing. They don't even know I'm making it. Just wanted to mention it. I'll put a link down below to their website. There are also other types of cloning paste, like Kiki cloning paste, I believe it is. I'm not sure the brand or who sells that, but if I find some online, I'll pop a link down below. And then it just kind of looks like this, so you can see I've used it. Obviously, it's full when you get it. So yeah, this one's just blue. I don't know what color Kiki, whatever it is. So basically this stuff, well, like it says here, for directions, you can go on their website and then they have more detailed instructions. Very briefly, basically what you do is you can use this stuff to kind of encourage your plant to put out more growth points. So it kind of speeds up, I guess, that kind of process of trying to make your plants fuller and bushier. So yeah, I have used this with a few plants. There are some plants I've used it on and it works amazing. Like perfect, not had any issue. But I have also tried it on some other plants and they died, and I don't know if it was this. I'm just being honest here, I don't know if it was this or it was just completely something else, and it was just like a coincidence. So that's why I'm only going to talk about it really briefly, but I mean it is an option. Yeah, like once I run out of this I probably won't bother buying it again. So yeah, the plants that I used it on I used it on, I think it was Hoyas. So this is meant to be really good with Hoyas, but yeah, my Hoyas like died after I used it on them. But this plant, my Peperomia dalstedii, this is the only plant I use this on because I know it's fine. So I've used this on this plant so many times and it always works for her, and I've never had an issue. She continues to grow, she's happy as. So yeah, I mean it does work, but I would just suggest doing some more research before you go out and try it, like finding out as much as you can about it. I'm sure there's other videos that actually like give more detailed information about this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm just very briefly mentioning it because it is something that you can do. So I've used it on this plant, so you can see it's pretty full and bushy. It's a little still, but it's a lot fuller at the top and there's a lot going on. So this plant cutting actually was, I think there was originally 3 growth points in here. So most of all the additional growth points in this pot is from using cloning paste. So I don't know if I can show you. So this stem here, I have used cloning paste on. I can see the residue of it, so I don't know if you can see that, but right in there, can we focus on it? Okay, right in there, if you can see, there's some blue stuff here. And so when I did that, I got this stem. Then I've actually put cloning paste on this stem, and then I've got another growth point come out of it. So I've got 2 extra growth points from the stem by using cloning paste. And then I also used it somewhere else as well, I think. Can't see it now. So I've used it on my Peperomia dalstedii, worked amazing. But yeah, like I said, it's the only plant that I use it on. Everything else, it hasn't gone well. That's just my experience. I've also heard that if the plant doesn't have enough nutrients, it's like already sad, then potentially the cloning paste, because it's basically speeding up the natural process, that could be why the plants didn't do so well. So as long as your plant is like really healthy and has enough nutrients, then supposedly it should be fine. I don't know, that's just what I've heard. Anyway, some people love it and rave about it. Yeah, that's cloning paste, option number 1. Another option you could do is you could do pinning. So this is where you basically get some type of object that works as a pin. So you can buy pins that look like this. The point of pinning is that you're pinning the nodes so that they are touching the soil, and then hopefully an aerial root or a root will grow from that node into the soil. It will help secure the plant in there and then encourage it to put out more growth points. So I've pinned some of my Hoya serpens down as well. There was more pins in here, but I've taken some out because it's now, you know, well and truly rooted in there. And as you can see, it's putting out a few more growth points. Plants such as begonia or peperomia, for example, you wouldn't pin. So just looking at my begonia silver cloud as an example, how their stems work is they're just long and furry and the node's right at the bottom. So I wouldn't be able to pin this on the soil because it's not going to do anything. Really good example is my satin pothos. So here he is here. So he's beautiful. So what I've done is a while ago when I potted it, I have pinned this cutting. This one actually I pinned it because the roots are in the soil, but the actual node is sitting on top of the soil. So I pinned it just so that it wouldn't fall out and wobble around. So you can also use pins for that purpose, just to secure plants or cuttings, especially if they're really small. But basically what happens is the node that's touching the soil where I've pinned it has actually put out a root, if you can see that. Oh, hopefully you can see that there's like a little white thing there that I'm lifting up. So that's a root, and then from that node it's popped out a new growth point. So yeah, that's kind of the whole purpose of pinning and what you want to happen. And the more nodes that are touching the soil, then hopefully the more extra growth points you're going to get. For my satin pothos, I've got this really long vine, so I'm probably going to chop it. But what you could do as well, if you didn't want to chop it, is I do have a lot of soil and space in the pot, so I could just wrap it around, pin it down so that it stays in the pot secure, and then I don't have this long vine just kind of hanging there, and hopefully then I will get some growth points coming out from this side as well. So that is, yeah, that's pinning. So you can do that. I also pinned like my variegated chain of hearts as well, so I pinned that a lot into the soil and it's just gone crazy, and there's so many growth points. So yeah, pinning is a really great way to get fuller plants because it helps them create more growth points without needing to cut it or buy anything. Basically just get some pins. These are pretty good. I really like these ones. They're normally pretty cheap and they're plastic and you can reuse them, etc, etc. So you can just grab a bunch and then just reuse them. So I'll put some links down below of some places where you can buy these. They normally come in like a large pack for a couple dollars. So yeah, these are really good. I like that they're very long, so they go a lot deeper into the soil, and they have a little tab at the top so they're easy to just pull out as well when you want to. Whereas I found with other types of pins, I'd have to like get something in under the soil to pull it out. But you don't have to use these. You can also just use some objects that you have in the house or other things that you might want to use. I don't have the right size, but another example of something that people do is they use this kind of stuff. So this is a really thick one, but you can buy thinner versions. So I've seen people buy thinner ones of these, and then you just cut it and then shape it into a U like that. So imagine it was cut there, and then you just poke it into the soil. I have tried to use this one for a few plants. If the stem's really thick, then this works. You can also buy a thinner one. I've seen other people as well use like floristry wire, or I just have bought just normal wire from Minor 10, like thin wire, and then just cut it up and made a little U shape out of it and use that to pin things into the soil. So yeah, those are the kind of things that you can use as a pin, whatever works. But personally I just prefer these because they're easy, they're cheap, they're reusable, and they're nice and long, so they tend to stay in the soil more easily, whereas if it's very short, I find that sometimes they just pop out, especially if the stem's really thick. Another option, the third option, is to trim your plants. This can actually promote more growth or create more growth points. So I'll just show you an example. It's my Hoya obovata. Isn't he pretty? So basically you can, by trimming a plant, that can help promote your plant to put out more growth points. Usually they will, if you cut off the top tip of a plant, it will then put out more growth points further down the plant. So for example, on my obovata, it was starting to get quite long and it didn't really work how I wanted it to, but this still serves as a good example. So it's getting quite long, so I wanted to do a cutting. So what I thought I'd do was I'd cut it. So you can see I've cut it right here. So I cut it and I was hoping that it might put out a growth point somewhere down here to help the plant get a lot thicker, but actually it just put out a growth point right beside where I'd cut it. So it was kind of pointless in the end, but this is just an example of what can happen. So I cut it and then another growth point has come out from beside that growth point, which is really exciting. I've also done this with my Peperomia Hope. So you can see that she's quite full. So actually I haven't added any cuttings into this pot. This is just the one plant that I got, the one growth point, and it's put out more growth points. Again, what I did was, it was getting quite long, so I trimmed it back, and then this has made it put out more growth points in other places. So this stem I have not cut at all, so it's just continuing to grow, and it's just one long stem. There's no more growth points coming out of it, as you can see. But this stem is my best example. As you can see, it's got 3 growth points coming out of one node. So all I did was I cut it here. I can see where I've cut it. You probably can't if you can see there. I cut it there, and then it's decided to put out not 1, 2, but 3 growth points from the node where I cut it. And I can actually see a 4th on the way. So obviously it now looks a lot fuller because it has more growth points coming out of it. And at the same time, when I cut one of these stems, it also decided to put this growth point out from the top. So you can see just by cutting this plant a few times, it has made it a lot fuller and there are more growth points in the pot. I haven't added any cuttings back into this pot. All the extra growth points are purely natural, just from me basically cutting it back. So yeah, that's another great way to make your plants fuller and bushier, which makes sense, right? I'm not really a gardener, but if you do like gardening, quite often you prune your plants, and the purpose of that is to, well, A, make sure that they are growing the shape that you want, but B, also it helps to increase the number of growth points that you have and make your plant fuller. So the same thing applies to indoor plants as well. Okay, the 4th method for helping to make your plants look fuller and more lush is to chop and prop, which is personally my favorite method. It doesn't involve you needing to purchase anything else, so you're not spending any money, which is great. Sometimes you might even make money because you might realize you've chopped too much and you have extra cuttings for spare that you can sell. Bonus. Just easy, simple, and it's super fun as well. So by chopping and propping, basically what I mean is going back to step 3 when we're chopping to increase our growth points. So you can do that, but also at the same time keep the cuttings that you have taken and propagate them. So this is like the best way, because A, by chopping and getting more cuttings, you then increase the chances that your plant is going to naturally put out more growth points, which will help to make it fuller. And then B, you get to propagate some cuttings, and then what I do is once they're all ready to go, chuck them straight back into the pot. easy, and then you get a full, lovely, beautiful plant. So good. So yeah, definitely my favorite method because it doesn't cost anything. It's fun. You get to play with your plants, you get to propagate. Great. So yeah. So I do have a few plants today that I do want to do this method for. I have some ready to go and some that I want to chop today and then start the propagation process. So for example, I have this Hoya fishtail, which is beautiful and lush and full, right? But I want to make it even fuller. So basically this huge jar of Hoya fishtail cuttings. You can see all the beautiful roots in there, so it looks like they are pretty much ready to go. And then not only do I have these cuttings, but I've also got these fishtail cuttings too. So I have all of these Hoya fishtail cuttings, which I believe are all ready to go. I'm not 100% sure about these ones. I'll have to check. There might be some that aren't quite ready yet, but that's okay. If they're not ready, I'll just sell them properly. I've got all of these, which I'm going to add into this pot, and then eventually I'm going to have such a full plant because it's going to have so many cuttings. So yeah, that is one of the things that I want to do today, and a great example of making a plant fuller. So much fun. Then another thing that I want to do is going back to my satin pothos. I love how full it is at the top. Looks beautiful, but there are still some gaps, and I've now got this one long trailing vine, plus there are a lot of gaps on this bit, so I don't really like it that much. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to cut it right back to maybe here, because I like how close together these leaves are. There's not huge gaps, so it kind of like it looks cool. So yeah, I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to get three cuttings out of it, which I will propagate, and then eventually, not today, but eventually I'll be able to add them back into this pot to make this plant even fuller for the future. I haven't really had a look around, to be honest, but there might be a few other plants that I have that I might be able to do the same thing for, but for now I'm definitely going to do those two. So yeah, so I will do a before and after so you can see like what it looks like. So again, this is the before of the Hoya fishtail, and this is the after, and then this is the before, and then this is the after. But obviously I haven't put the cuttings back in because I've only just cut them and they have to root first, but it's going to look a lot fuller and nicer soon. Okay, and the fifth and final method, probably most people's least favorite, but I don't know, I like doing it. But it's totally an option, right? Okay, so the fifth option is you could just buy more plants and add them in and make the plant you have already fuller. Yay! Personally, I love to do that, but yeah, so I'll just explain. I have my syngonium confetti, so for me this makes total sense to me. Like, I did have to spend a little bit of money, but I think it's worth it. So this is my syngonium confetti at the moment. She's pretty good, but I would like her to be even fuller. The fuller the better. I do love her though. So when I got the syngonium confetti, they'd just come out in New Zealand and they were like $100, okay? $100, right? I think I did end up getting a cutting from someone in a plant tray, like with something else that I got. So I think I did add another cutting into here. But yeah, this is kind of what she's looking like. But the other weekend I was at a plant store and I found another one, but it was only $5. And it's super full. So yeah, basically I was like, that is so cheap, because now they're still like $20. So it's even cheaper than the regular price, which is already reduced to about $20. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get it. I had $5 in cash, so I got it. And then so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add it into the same pot. So I'm gonna have a way bushier plant. So yeah, that is the plan for today. I'm going to add the two together. This one, when I got it, it did have mealybugs, so I literally like sprayed it and left it outside for like 2 weeks, and I've been holding off. Syngonium confetti is also really thirsty because she needs a water, but I haven't bothered watering her this week because I knew I was going to do this anyway. So I was like, what's the point of that, you know? So yeah, that's also another method that you can do if you want to spend some money. Personally, I was like, you know, $5, why not? Probably the same price as me getting one cutting, so I was like, you know, it's worth it. I do also have some Syngonium confetti cuttings that I've already rooted and propagated, so I'll probably add them in as well at the same time, so even more growth points. Yeah, and I'm also going to do my Maranta rabbit's foot today as well. So this is my rabbit's foot Maranta. I love this plant. I think she has been in other videos. I've already done this before in terms of prop and chop. So she was a lot smaller, and I have already chopped her up, propagated her, and put more cuttings in here. So she's looking a lot fuller than she was quite a few months ago. She's also just been putting out these huge, beautiful leaves, which is like stunning. I always find for this plant in particular that like over winter time she doesn't really do much, or any leaves she puts out are really dull or small, and then in spring, summer, she always just chucks out these huge beautiful leaves, and they're just so beautiful. Anyway, long story short, I was at the shops yesterday and King's Plant Barn had a special on. It was like 25% off, and I saw more of these and they were already cheap, and then they also had 25% off and the flowering. So I was like, you know what, I'm already doing this video, like I'd already planned that I was going to film this today. This was yesterday when I saw it, and so I was like, perfect timing. So I bought another one. Isn't she beautiful? And she's flowering and she's huge. So I'm gonna just combine them together and just have the hugest, biggest, lushest Maranta rabbit's foot ever. I'm also like really impatient as well, so this method is kind of like the best method if you're impatient and you don't want to wait for your cuttings to propagate. Like I could fully have just cut that up, propagated it some more and put them back in, but this was so much faster and I didn't have to wait. So I'm excited to see how they're going to look in the end, and I'll also chop my satin pothos up too, just like I said. And yeah. Okay guys, that is the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful to you or gave you some ideas you might not necessarily have thought of before. I'm sure there's probably some other ways that you can help your plants to become more full. To be honest, I can't think of any other way. If you have some suggestions, pop them down below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, you know the drill. Please like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!